All right, my wife said, and that's all that matters, I have to wait a little longer, she's right about this, before I get going in all the information because people want to hop on live. And she's probably right about that. So I'm just going to kind of frame this all. I'm going to start with a story. How's that? So I had said, I had alluded to the fact that this orthostatic blood pressure is a way to determine how to address the adrenals and what to do, because this gets very confusing because the adrenals do funny things, as I explained in part one. And by the way, if you haven't seen part one yesterday's, please see part one. Very important to understand what's going on today. But this is a way to actually assess how to help the adrenals so you're not causing more problems, because it gets very confusing because at night the adrenals come firing back, so I'm kind of reviewing from yesterday, to support the low blood sugar because of all the chemical emotional stressors. The blood sugar goes low, the brain can only use glucose. So to save the brain, that's always the goal, to save the brain, to save its own life, the innate intelligence, what it does is it will release cortisol and adrenaline. So one or the other, and perhaps both, because when you up cortisol or adrenaline, up goes the glucose. Hey, it works. However, you're left not sleeping, awake. Hey, awake, that's typically cortisol, feel fine. When the adrenaline starts coming up, you typically get the anxiety going. And then in the day, a couple things could happen. Either just wiped out tired, or you could have this weird tired anxiety, which simply means that your adrenals are firing back with probably producing too much cortisol and adrenaline, even though they're so wiped out. So when that happens, if you're trying to support and take adrenal products, oftentimes it makes you worse. However, if you're firing up, this test can determine if your adrenals are up here producing too much cortisol and adrenaline, and then we can do something else, which I'm going to show you, to actually calm it down, to rest the adrenals and get a better night's sleep. So we're going to talk about that. How many people do we have joined, Isaac?
18.
Camera guy. All right. Is that enough time? Do you think this is enough time? Yeah, sometimes we get a ton of people live and sometimes we don't. All right, so here's the story. I promise you a story. Okay, so this orthostatic blood pressure became absolutely something that she wants to forget. As a matter of fact, I was looking, where did we get this? Walmart or somewhere? 35 bucks, I think. 40 bucks? $38? Okay. So that's what it costs for one of these. And I was saying, don't you remember the other one? She was like, I can't even remember what kind it was. I'm like, aha, proof positive there were so many wounds around this that she actually blocked it out of her mind, because I can remember mine to the exact T. She would literally, this is true, she would hide this from me. Okay, here's why. Right? You would.
I had other things from you too.
This became predictable of whether I would sleep or not. So to her point, she believed I was creating my own realities, and she was probably partly right there. So meaning that when this was very high, and I'm going to explain this in a minute, but the bottom line is when you go from a lying and a standing position, if it goes up above 20, your adrenals are in this absolute hyper mode. And those nights were my worst because it would just continue into this adrenal mode, and it was bad. So, that was not good. So if I saw these hyper numbers, I would freak out because I knew it was going to be a bad night. So, she basically was like, I was doing this thing, I don't know, like crazy, right? Because I was even doing wanting different numbers.
Probably
right?
4 times a day.
Yeah, because I wanted different numbers, because if it was, a normal reading from lying to standing, and I'll explain what that is as people are coming on live, then I would know that I would actually have a better night's sleep. So this became such a tool, and a very accurate tool, that it became addictive. So that's why it was a love-hate relationship. All right, so amongst the dogs here, I'm now going to explain how to do this, and then I'm going to explain the results, and then I'll explain what to do. Fair enough? All right, and camera guy, if someone asks some really pending questions, then you could read them to me. All right, so the first thing that's going on is you want to lay down for at least 5 minutes. 3, I think, would be a minimum to get the, everything normalized. Then you take the blood pressure, which we already did. The top number, the systolic, is actually the one that you have to pay attention to. Okay, so forget about the bottom number, the systolic. So the 120, if you will. Over 80, we want to pay attention to the 120. So her first one, I actually did this just to save time. Her first one was 127, so normal number. So we can write that down. She's still been lying. Now we're going to take, don't do it yet, we're going to take the person and we're going to stand them up and immediately take the blood pressure. What you want to see is anywhere between normal is between 10 and 20 of a rise in the systolic blood pressure. All right, so let's talk hypoadrenia, meaning that adrenals are just wiped out, tired, not responding at all. We're going to see a drop. So we're going to see from a 120, or in her case a 127, we could see perhaps a drop of 5, or it would stay the same. That's mild hypoadrenia. Maybe it only rises about 5. That's kind of normal. It's probably some days higher, a little lower. But when it drops 5, 10, even 20, the lower it goes, the more the adrenals are just giving up, okay? You know, if you don't even need this test if you go, gosh, when I go from a standing or sitting to a standing position, you get dizzy, okay, you're wiped out. But let me give you another thing that could cause it. Low blood volumes can cause it. And a lot of people who have severe chronic fatigue syndrome, they just naturally have a lower blood volume. So oftentimes they're working within, on a good day, maybe they're raising 5. On bad days, they're lowering, 10 or 15 or even 20 I've seen. Now, on my really bad nights, I would literally raise like 30 to 40. So standing up, it would boom, 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 it would rise up. I remember even at 50 one time, where it was just, going from...
Neither of us slept at all.
So let's say it would go, and no one slept those nights. So it would go from 120, say, just for a number, it would go from 120, and it would literally raise 40 or 50. So imagine, my adrenals were just fighting back. So it's just throwing cortisol, adrenaline, everything it can. So when you look at like how the adrenals work, it'll go from, exhaustion, then it goes to these hyper modes, exhaustion. Then you can be left absolutely, completely exhausted all the time. But the problem is this, again, it normally wants to fight back from, this exhausted state. It wants to try to really get the body upbooted, but it can add to a really bad night's sleep, and that's our point. We want to protect the adrenals from doing that. So,
hide the blood pressure.
Hide the blood pressure go.
That's my tip.
So in those hyper modes, this product, I mentioned it yesterday's video, Serafos, it became a staple. I mean, it literally was a lifesaver. So if it wasn't for this, honestly, I couldn't even have dealt with my days. I would take, 2 or 3 pills of this when I had that hyper state. And I would do it on an empty stomach a couple times through the day, even 3 times, and then right before bed. And it would take those hyper states down. It would protect the adrenals. And that severe anxiety, would absolutely be manageable. And if I would wake up in the middle of the night, I would take a couple more, and then again, it would allow me oftentimes to get back to sleep within, an hour anyway. So on the really exhausted, on the opposite, if you're adrenal exhausted, if it's not rising at all or below, this is a product that I would use. It's called GA. And this is more adrenal support. There's actually RNA, DNA tissues in it from actual adrenal. And yeah, that would be more of a support. So now, oftentimes, at night, I would still take this at night, and I would take this by day as long as my blood pressure wasn't rising. It would be okay. But if my blood pressure was rising over 20, then I would just take this. Okay? So you get that? So if blood pressure is rising above 20 on this test, I'm going to do it on her in a second, I would only take this through the day and night. If it was low and dropping, then I would take this during the day, maybe 1 or 2 in the morning, 1 or 2 later, and then I would take this still at night, because the exhausted adrenals will still wake up at 2 to 4 in the morning and release a bunch of cortisol. And with this, we protect the adrenals from doing that. And with this, we rebuild them during the day. And then I just brought these out just to show some other things that people don't think about. Good old-fashioned sea salt is a really important adrenal factor. Electrolytes are really important for the adrenals, and sea salt is one way to manage that. And people forget about just basic B vitamins as really important adrenal support. So, you know, just some things you can really just pick up anyway. Now, this particular B vitamin has more active forms in it, so I recommend getting a good one. But this just real salt, pink salt, Himalayan salt, 1 or 2 teaspoons a day makes all the difference in the world. And especially if your hypoadrenia is blood volume related, it sure does help with that as well. So, okay, so there's some of the solutions on how to do it. Now let me just show you this. So imagine she laid here 5 minutes, and I took her blood pressure, wrote down the systolic. So that's done now. Now let's immediately rise her up, stand her up. So immediately I'm gonna push the button. And that's all you do on these, by the way, is you just hit the button. And now you want it, you know, you can just dangle it, or if you have a counter to set it on, you can kind of just let the arm go, but it works either way. They always say to keep it heart high. So I used to have a counter like this, but no, you don't want the person moving the arm person. So just chill right now. I did mine right before this, and I rose about 17, so very normal. So again, this is why I didn't do it twice, right? She's normal. So she went from 127 to 145. So completely normal. Again, we ignore this number, that's the one. So our first reading was 127, and she rose exactly the same as me, actually about 17.
18.
So 18. Thank you, camera guy. So anyways, that's it. That's exactly normal. You know, and again, I mean, anywhere between 10 and 20 is normal. You know, 5 is definitely on the more exhausted side. If you're dropping, forget about it. You know, no doubt. So again, I'm just going to review one more time.
Wait, Dad.
Yeah.
Camille Holstein asked, what if you have high blood pressure? Can you take the supplements?
Yeah, you can. So, you know, again, I have to say this all the time, you know, always check with your doctor, right? I mean, and there's some legitimacy behind that. But Cerephos is often used with the ingredients in it to actually help blood pressure. So, you know, but again, so if you're going up above 20, Cerephos all day and night, right? If you're dropping below, you know, below 10 at least, definitely below 5, then GA in the day, Cerephos at night, because this is going to support. And again, if you're dropping below, then I believe the sea salt, some B vitamins is also very supportive. So, and of course there's other things. I'm just trying to give you some basics. Now look, all this is only to help you gauge this very difficult thing to gauge. You know, the pituitary, where the heavy metals are, the pineal gland, where the heavy metals are. You have to be upstream in what we call brain phase. And are you calling Mom over there? She's not paying attention. Anyways, upstream in a brain phase where we're pulling out these metals. Because remember, the pituitary controls the adrenals. You know, when this system, when the brain is poisoned, literally toxic, neurotoxic, most people cannot sleep. Or another sign is you sleep and you wake up literally and you felt like you didn't sleep, right? And because there's different levels of sleep, in the next part 3 video, I'm going to give you my other tricks to help you get to sleep and you know, if you wake up. So I do have tricks, that's for tomorrow's video. And I'm going to explain the ring that we were joking about that shows delta sleep, REM sleep, because, here's the ring. Yeah, they have one. Yeah, so here's the ring right there. There it is. My son, we got it for him. Actually, athletes use it because it actually can determine your recover if you're, or we call it your they call it your readiness score, to see if you're recovering, if you're ready for a hard workout, because sleep actually has a lot to do with, well, almost everything to do with recovery and whether you're ready or not. So it measures body temperature, but it measures how much delta sleep, which is the deep sleep that you need to recover. So if you're not getting enough delta sleep, then typically you need more recovery, REM sleep, etc. So I'll talk a little bit more about that tomorrow, and stay tuned because I'm going to give you my sleep tricks beyond this trick tomorrow. So is there any other questions there?
How much ACC chelation until adrenals normalize?
ACC
Yeah, I'm not
chelation.
sure what that
Okay,
is.
yeah. Anyways, but you know, I'll say this. You know, how much true cellular detox? Maybe they meant. In a brain phase. Look, I'm going to be honest with you. It was about, Mara, what do you say? I mean, it was about a year of doing brain phases to where my sleep became more consistently. I could sleep through the night.
You became, it was obvious that you were improving. I mean,
Yeah,
you were getting
exactly.
better. We knew,
I mean, I
we knew
did-
in a short time, but you had more consistent good days.
Yeah. As it comes out of the brain, as it comes out of the pituitary, obviously things start to normalize. But remember this, sleep and anxiety, it's one of the classic symptoms for neurotoxicity. So I mean, that's, typically people don't go upstream and really get to the cause of why they're not sleeping. And by the way, it was one of the first signs that I had too, is that I wasn't able to sleep. And it was just, this weird thing. I just would wake up and, thought it was normal. Now that's neurotoxicity.
And anxious.
And anxious. And that became, it started with sleep, and then it became anxiety, then it became dread, then even panic attacks.
We have a lot of
started.
stories.
Yeah, we do have a lot of stories.
Sean? Hi, Sean. The answer is no. Just slug it down. Is there an easy way to take sea salt? No.
Slug it down.
Mix it in water.
Yeah,
Or
exactly.
dump it on your tongue without the water. You'll prefer it with the water.
Yeah.
Just did mine 116, 5 minutes lying down, 118. So you're fine.
So 116 to
So
118.
does that mean I need the stuff? No, you're good.
No, 116 to 118, that's only a raise of 2. Yeah, I would absolutely support the adrenals. So if you're sleeping fine, maybe you don't need this, right? At night. However, with only a rise of 2,
Just the beat, yeah.
the B's and some GA and
that's-
some sea salt. That's all I would do. Honestly, I mean, you could have some adrenal exhaustion just from stress,
Or too much
overwork.
caffeine.
Yeah, right. There's some other reasons for adrenal exhaustion here. So what I'm doing with this orthostatic, it's a way of monitoring your adrenal glands. But it's also, like I said, it's a way to figure out this sleep thing, because again, it gets very confusing. So, hopefully that helps. Any other pressing questions?
No.
So, all right, well, listen, stay tuned tomorrow, because I'm going to give you a couple little formulations that really work. And like I said, and one of the keys is switching it up. So you need more than one trick. And then we'll talk more about the ring, which we had some questions on. So in the meantime, if you have questions, fire away now in the comments of what your questions are. And please, and I thank those who share the videos. I do. I thank you so much, because it's the only way we get the message out, right? It's why I'm doing it. So please, make comments. That helps. But please share it. People need this. Remember how many people, this is an epidemic of people, neurotoxic, can't sleep, anxiety, depression. I could go through it, right? They're just not understanding what's going on. These are helpful hints. They'll appreciate when you share it. So thank you for doing that. And stay tuned tomorrow for part 3. It's going to be fun.
Uh-oh.